Hey, how's it going? Today we're going to play some games with Ancient Box. I think Ancient Box seems like it's in a pretty good spot in the meta right now with like decks like Raging Bolt and Lugia and Gardevoir doing really well. So I figured I'd try it out. It also got a new card in Tatsugiri that is pretty decent for the consistency of it. Tatsugiri, of course, has the ability that when it's in the active spot, you can look at the top 6 cards of your deck and take a supporter card from there. That's a good way to find our Sadas, and I just added that and a couple rescue boards and a switch cart and a heavy ball as kind of like the Tatsugiri package. But our main attacker is going to be Roaring Moon with the Vengeance Fletching attack for 2 dark energy. It does 70 plus 10 damage for all the ancient cards in our discard pile, so that's ancient Pokemon and trainers. And I decided to cut the Koraidon after I played some games with it, because I was never really attacking with it, and I wanted to just lean more into the Roaring Moon attack. So we have Flutter Mane and Scream Tail as our extra Pokemon. Scream Tail is literally just in there because it has 1 retreat cost, and it also has just colorless attacks, so in theory we could use the attacks if we really needed to. Flutter Mane is a good starter, and we can attack with it if we really want to. It of course has the ability that it shuts off the abilities of your opponent's active Pokemon. We have Great Tusk just in case we run into a situation our opponent has less than 4 cards in deck, we can just mill them and win. And Greninja, of course, for support. I kept the Penny in there because Snorlax still seems really good right now. We got a Switch Cart, Penny, double Pal Pad. I think we should be able to figure something out against that matchup. And the rest of the deck's pretty straightforward. One of these games I was still playing with the Koraidon version, but the game is just, I don't know, I thought it was a really good game, so I wanted to keep it in there. And yeah, that's the list. Let's get into the games. Alright, so we're up against Raging Bolt here. And I have decided I think I like going first with this deck. This was actually one that was kind of tricky to figure out, but after going second a bunch, I don't think I ever got the turn 1 attack off, so I figured I'd just go first with it and then we can attack on turn 2. Because you do need like very specific cards to be able to get the turn 1 attack off going second. And I tried adding like more stuff that I thought would help, like Artisan or third PokéStop, and it just never worked out. I even had trekking shoes in there at one point. Alright, but our opponent is getting a pretty good start here. Luckily we started that Flutter Mane, so their Ogerpon in the active can't accelerate to itself to retreat. That's kind of another bonus of playing the full 4 Flutter Mane in the deck, is stuff like this. We go first, and this is going to make it a lot harder for our opponent to get an attack off. Like they need a switch cart or a way to push this Flutter Mane out of the active or something. And yeah, so we might be able to kind of buy a turn. Even though I really wouldn't mind if our opponent just knocked the Flutter Mane out, because then it would make it easier for me to be able to attack next turn. I could even promote the Tatsugiri and hopefully find a supporter card or something like that. Our opponent is getting rid of all of their energy. I don't even think they use Squawkabilly yet. This Raging Bolt deck is really fun. It just kind of goes crazy on the first turn. And then after that, the turns aren't really quite as long. And I feel like in real life, it's one of those decks where the actions are going to be much quicker. Like online, the Ogerpon ability takes so much time, but in real life, you just slam the energy, draw the card. It takes like, yeah, like half of that amount of time. Should be much smoother. Really curious to see how this deck's going to do. Yeah, and they're forced to attach, which they attach and retreat before. Am I losing my mind? Does Squawkabilly not get a down arrow on it when the ability is used? Maybe he already used it and it's just like a overall effect and not on the Pokemon, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to use the PokéStop here because I have Pal Pad in hand. I can just Pal Pad back the Sada if I mill it, and I do mill it and Pal Pad it back. I wanted to put the boss back there but I didn't, because I really would like to get this attack off. And this is kind of an awkward draw, but I grabbed the vessel and the switch card just to start attacking and put some pressure on my opponent, because I'm thinking next turn I can send up the Tatsugiri and find another Sada and, you know, hopefully get going. I don't know, maybe I should have just grabbed Vessel and the Sada though, now that I'm looking at it again. I think I probably should have just grabbed Vessel and Sada and just attach to the other Roaring Moon and wait until next turn to attack. So I'm not one-shotting this guy anyway, and by next turn I would really like to be one-shotting these things. I saw a jamming tower or whatever that stadium is that shuts tools off get discarded, so I would assume that they're not playing tool cards. I'm not really too sure though. But they have the Sada, which makes sense. They only have 14 cards left in deck. Figures that they would like have whatever they wanted at this point. And they just attach their energy. And Bellowing Thunder, they do a little switch cart, kind of hoping to take another hit. I think that is definitely a pretty good play on their part. And my hand does not look like much. I can either start with Greninja or I can start with PokéStop. I end up starting with Greninja, hoping to draw a Sada, and I do. And now I'm going to PokéStop to try and draw some more cards to discard. And now this hand is looking pretty good at this point. Like I keep pulling up my discard because I have to recount the ancient cards and it's kind of annoying. I wish there was like some kind of a counter there. And now I'm just trying to figure out how exactly I'm going to sequence this turn. I think I need to get like 5 more cards in the discard pile or something like that. Or like 7 maybe. So I don't even want to discard that Ultra Ball because I might need that to discard more cards with. And what I wanted to do was Ultra Ball for an ancient card and discard it with Ultra Ball and then use the drum. But I just didn't want to get rid of my other Pal Pad because I'm already down one. So now I'm pretty much out of energy in deck. I can Ultra Ball again and then use the ancient drum for 4. And then hopefully get enough cards to Superior and Ultra Ball away enough to get a knockout. And I think I do end up getting just enough cards with this Explorer's Guidance and the Booster Capsule in my hand. And I just end up retreating and making sure that I'm right about how many cards I have to get rid of because it's just so annoying counting over and over again. Whereas in real life, I'd like have them in a separate pile and know exactly how many cards I had in the discard pile. I wouldn't have to keep doing that. But I do get just enough cards, which is very nice. I could have got 1 more in there or 2 more in there if I needed to with the Superior. So we could have hit up to 260 that turn, which is kind of crazy for turn 2. That's why I ended up leaning more into this version of the deck. It just felt a little more consistent with the dark energies and no to retreat Pokemon. I don't know. I guess everything would have happened exactly the same in the other version, but my opponent just ends up attacking and they're forced to attack with this damaged one, but it doesn't matter. They are getting knocked out no matter what. So I just Sada here and yeah, now I'm just trying to, set up my board to win the game and debating how many energy to grab. I think I end up grabbing 3 because I want to leave 1 in there to Sada for next turn. Now I'm just gonna check the thing and probably retreat and make sure I know how much damage I'm doing because counting these things in discard piles is a pain. And I can put back the Roaring Moons. And I'm debating putting the energy back or not. It's kind of weird. I don't put it in my hand, but I put it back in the deck so that I can Vessel for it later if I wanted, if my hand got disrupted. And I can Sada back, or Pal Pad back another Sada and a boss. They do end up conceding, but I was not going to Nest Ball for the Roaring Moon because that would be kind of a boss target that, I don't know, might help them find some kind of thing to do. But next turn I was going to Nest Ball for it and set up so that I had 2 Roaring Moons on the bench, or 1 in the active, 1 on the bench, just nothing they could do. I was going to win the game before they could knock out both those other ones anyway. I just wanted to make sure no funny business happened. And this is also the list that I'm going to be playing in the next game. It's got the Koraidon and the option to attack with it. I also have the Brute Bonnet in there with the option to poison, but I ended up taking that out as well as one of the Tatsugiris for a heavy ball. So let's get into it. Alright, so we're up against Guardy this game, and I did choose to go first. And I just attached the energy and passed, and then they went and played a Arvin or something for Poffin and TM Evo, and Evo'd up into their 2 Curlia, and now we're picking up on the next turn where I Sada'd. to both my Roaring Moons and attacked, and now I have 2 Roaring Moons set up. So this, I think overall is a good matchup as long as you can keep like Sadaing to multiple Roaring Moons to always have a backup one set up. When you start running into a spot where you can only Sada to the moon that you're going to attack with that turn, you start running into where they Iono you and you can't, it's really hard to get another Roaring Moon out. That is one of the downfalls of this deck, but being a 1 prize deck, you have so much extra time. And in this matchup, usually it takes them a few turns to attack, so maybe just because they're not playing Rare Candy now, I would say if you know you're going up against Guardy, you could pick to go second, because they're not going to be attacking you on turn 2 anyway, so it'll be kind of the same, and you just get the opportunity to high roll the first knockout and get ahead by 2 prizes before they can start attacking. My opponent, I think, is able to knock me out here. I would have liked to have found a booster capsule last turn to put on my Roaring Moon, just to put more pressure on them to find more energies and a tool to knock me out. It's a pain for decks to knock out a 200 hit point 1 prize Pokemon. Like, I don't know if they have the Bravery Charm in their hand and they're just holding it, but if they don't, they wouldn't have been able to knock me out this turn. But since I didn't find a capsule, I am getting knocked out by this Balloon Blast, and I can just throw up my Tatsugiri. And luckily Artisan's in play. That's like a really nice stadium for this deck to have. And I don't shuffle because there was no Sada on the bottom, so I figure I had higher odds of hitting Sada before shuffling. Then I could Artisan for a moon, and then I can't Nest Ball for one because the other one's prized, unfortunately, but it's just the way it is. And I whiff the Sada, but I do at least get to bench a moon and attach an energy to it. And now I throw down both of those booster capsules. A lot of these Guardy decks are not playing a Lost Vacuum, so I feel pretty good about putting that on there and not getting it Lost Vacuumed. Even if they do, I'm already doing pretty much enough damage to knock out anything in their deck. And it's going to make it a lot harder for them to knock out this Pokemon than the last Pokemon. I also get the Explorer's Guidance off the prizes, which is fine, but I really need to get into a Super Rod to start recycling my moons and a Sada to start accelerating energy to it, or to them, because if I could get at least 1 dark energy on 2 other moons, I think I'd be in a really good spot to win this game. But as of right now, I have an attack for next turn. I'm just worried about them Ionoing me after my next turn and how I'm going to get out of that situation. They get down the Monkey Dory, so they can either kind of break my booster capsule a little bit so that they can knock it out with a Drifloon without a tool, or they can try and start moving damage onto my Tatsugiri to skip ahead in prizes a turn in a couple turns. But at this point, I was still playing 2 Switch Cart, so I feel pretty good about my odds of finding one of those and being able to heal off the damage off the Tatsugiri. But they do find the Bravery Charm, so I would imagine they're either going to put the damage from the Monkey Dory damage on the Tatsugiri or on the benched Roaring Moon, because they have plenty of energy to do 200 to my active, which kind of sucks. I would have liked to make it a little harder for them, but they're drawing pretty well right now. And they Iono me into a pretty similar hand, but I do get into one of those Switch Carts, and I'm just that much closer to a Sada, but it kind of sucks because I'm really not looking for Sada at this point. I'm looking for a Super Rod and a Sada. And I get a Pal Pad that's not really a Super Rod, but it is an out to a Sada. And I don't know, I think that seems like a little bit of a mistake here. I really wanted to get a Sada that bad. I guess it guarantees the attack, but I need to find a Super Rod bad. And of course, I don't remember that my other guy is prized, so I Artisan. And I'm like, alright, maybe I can just attack with this Koraidon at some point. and I still don't get into a super rod, but I benched the Koraidon because if I got into like a Sada and a fighting energy next turn, I could like at the very least knock out a Drifloon or a Scream Tail with that. But I use the Explorer's Guidance. This is a tough decision because now I have to get rid of my boss and my last Pal Pad to keep a Sada. So I take the Pal Pad because I figure I can put back boss and Sada and have pretty good odds of hitting it next turn. Like, I'm running pretty low on cards in the deck. I'm going down to 21 cards in my deck. If I put those two back, surely I'll get one off of my Tatsugiri next turn. But that's kind of besides the point because I need to find a super rod. Both my super rods are in the deck. I just can't seem to draw into it. I do get a Sada off the prizes, but like I said, I really need a super rod at this point. I was trying out flip-flopping the second Pal Pad for this third super rod for a few games, but then it almost felt like I just always had super rods clunking up my hand. It was like, man, can't really win. It's either one way or another, right? So that is maybe something to consider adding if you're that worried about it. It's also extra outs to energy cards, which is nice. You have the Superior, and getting back 3 or 4 with Superior is usually plenty of energy to get you through the game, but Super Rod can always put back a Roaring Moon and 2 energy to grab with a Vessel. And I wonder if my opponent is playing like 3 Bravery Charms, because they're drawing really smooth. I guess they only have 9 cards in deck though, so it's kind of expected. And they're going to do the old counter catcher up a big retreater and stick it in the active and snipe my bench guy. And I have Penny in my hand, so I can pick this up, but that really doesn't help me because I can't Penny and set up an attacker. So this is kind of a terrible situation. I need to top deck a Sada. There's, I think, 3 in the deck, so of course I top deck a Koraidon. There's quite a few Pokemon as well, so it kind of makes sense. I have all 4 of my Roaring Moons in the discard pile. I thought I had 1 prize, but I guess not. Yeah, this is just not a good spot. Like, I could switch cart into the Tatsugiri, hopefully hit a Sada off that, but no, why would I hit a Sada off that? I probably should have shuffled the deck before I did that. I just really want to hold on to this Nest Ball so that if I get a super rod, I can get back one of my Roaring Moons. So, I don't know. I needed to find a way to go through my deck a little quicker. And as you can see, I'm taking forever with these actions. I'm really kind of struggling. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to think of any win condition at this point in time. And I can miss 1 turn right now. Like, I can miss a turn, knock out this Scream Tail next turn, and then get a boss on their Gardevoir EX or a counter catcher because I'll be behind, so my counter catchers will be active. But I don't even have Roaring Moons in my deck. I don't know. It's just really not looking good. And they're just going to move some damage over to my Koraidon and probably just knock out this active guy and force me to send up the Koraidon. And I'm going to be in a pretty rough spot. Let's see. I don't even know what I could top. I could top deck a Sada, I guess, and then PokéStop into a Super Rod is what I would need to happen so that I could put back a Roaring Moon and get my Roaring Moon on the bench. Yeah, I don't know. But they did go down to 4 cards in deck this turn. That's something to notice. So I see a glimmer of hope. I throw the Great Tusk on my bench. And now I'm just going to fill my bench up with as many ancient Pokemon as I can so that I can drum for as much as possible. And I get the Sada. And now I can Sada to both these guys. Superior for an energy. Attach the Rescue Board. Retreat. And mill my opponent out. This is awesome. I did not expect to win this game. And this is why you play the Great Tusk, because you really never know when your opponent's going to forget about it and go down to 4 cards in deck. I don't know, that game had me so excited. I honestly thought there was no hope. I was ready to concede. And then I just was like going through my checklist in my head of what I could do to win. And I'm like, oh, how many cards do they have in deck? And I saw that it was 4, and I managed to get the attack off. So we ended up taking down that game. And that was Ancient Box. I would definitely give it a try right now. I think it's in a pretty good spot, and not many people are playing it. Maybe there's a reason for that I just don't see, but I don't know. Check it out and take care.